Anyway, 50 years ago, a Massachusetts Navy veteran of World War II spoke the following words in a speech on October 26, 1963. These words truly describe how Malden honors its veterans. That World War II veteran stated something to the effect that a nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also by the men it honors, the men it remembers. Today, we could add women to that statement because they are serving and dying in combat zones that was never envisioned back in 1963, right alongside with their male counterparts. President John F. Kennedy spoke those words back in October 1963, less than a month before he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Today, Malden reveals itself as a proud city that honors and remembers its veterans. And no man honors and remembers its veterans more than our mayor, Gary Christenson. Gary, would you like to come up and say a few words, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is always an honor to participate in a ceremony for one of Malden's own. What better time than Veterans Day to recognize the heroism of our fallen heroes. Last week, we gathered to honor Private David Tartikoff, and today we pay tribute to Staff Sergeant Albert Neil Spadafora. Both sacrificed their life to safeguard and preserve our precious freedom. Two different men who fought in two different wars and served in two different branches of the military. But they are united in their courage, patriotism, and unwavering devotion to answer the call of duty. Both lived by the saying now inscribed on Tartikoff's memorial, which states, "He sought not glory, but his country's good." Sergeant Spadafora was a young hero who left behind a family, fiancé, and promising future in order to protect our country and its values. He put himself in harm's way and at great risk, not for glory, but so that the founding principles of this nation would persevere. He paid the fundamental price of freedom, and for that, we honor him today. As we reflect on his patriotism and ultimate sacrifice, let us also remember the dedication and courage of all our veterans. Thank you. I would now like to introduce my friend and the counselor of this great neighborhood, Steve Altrino.
Thank you very much for coming out on this very beautiful day. Welcome to Edgeworth, which is the heart of Ward 2 and a very important historical part of the city of Malden. About 6 months ago, Councilor at Large Craig Spadafora and I were talking about the neighborhood and some changes and remembering when we were little at the Immaculate School, seeing what all the old timers that passed on. And he mentioned about his uncle and how we'd like to have a memorial. And I said, well, let's do it. We should always remember those, especially those in our ward, who actually, these families that have come back today, built this ward. And this ward was very instrumental in building the great city of Malden. So, thanks to Kevin Jarvis, our Veterans Officer, Kevin, and Mayor Christenson, we're able to be here today. As an altar boy at St. Peter's Parish, which is right in front of me, every Saturday at 2 o'clock I was in charge of coming to the florist to pick up the flowers. Always red and white carnations in a nice cast vase. And little Anthony was overseeing the florist and he said, you know, the church doesn't pay for these flowers. I said, all right, you know, I'm not here to take up a collection, that's okay. I was only 7 or so. And he said, you know, Carmela always said, as long as the florist is open and as long as St. Peter's is open, you will always have flowers. And then when my father passed away about 18 years ago, little Anthony sent a flower over to Spaddy's and he said, this is also something because your father and people of this neighborhood will love so much, so please take that in honor of our family. And I was only 19, and I remember that 17 years later. That's the type of people that were in this community, that are still in this community, and what makes this one of the best communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So we honor Albert Neil Spadafora today and his family for everything that he sacrificed and that all of our veterans sacrifice. Thank you for coming today, and God bless all of you. At this time, I would like to introduce Albert Neil Spadafora's first cousin and a dear, dear friend of mine and neighbor, Tom Giampetro. Mr. Giampetro.
Thank you for being here. I've got a few memories of my uncle, especially in this spot here, because his first car that he bought, I think it was a 31 Plymouth with rumble seats. And his brothers, Tony and Roland, when Albert took a nap, they used to steal the car out of the yard, push it down the street so he wouldn't hear it starting up. Albert was a worker, he was pretty independent. He didn't enjoy working around the florist shop. He went to school, graduated, and he worked with Lawson Tool and Die up on Mount Vernon Street, I think it is. And when the war came along, they gave him a deferment because of they made military equipment there. And he, the second deferment, he refused. He said, "I'm joining the service." I can remember walking up Emerald Street with him when we were both young. And he had a paper route on the Malden. We would get on a train at the Sullivan Station, sell the Record American, and come home. But I was still a little kid. He babysat for me. He lived in that house right there for a while. And we both got drunk on some vermouth. he was a hell of a guy. I think of him almost every day. What kind of kid. And I'm just lost for words because of the next turnout. I got my memories. And his girlfriend right there. They got engaged when he came home on his furlough. And I said, "Gee, the two sisters married two brothers." That's not believable. But that's what happened. Again, thank you for everything. It was nice of you all to be here today.
Very good.
Well, when I took this job 3 years ago, I went around, did an inventory of all our memorial squares, monuments. Some needed to be replaced, and I thought of, gee, we had, in World War II, this city had 8,300 men and women in uniform. 8,300. And you see their names on the World War II Bell Rock Memorial. 8,300. So how many hundreds from Edgeworth? Who knows? And it's just amazing. I look back and it's like, wow, we have to do something. Now, obviously in World War II, if you have 8,300 people in uniform, sadly you're going to have a lot killed and wounded in battle. And we have about 250 or so that were killed in World War II. And others were taken prisoner of war. And some of those prisoners of war and killed in action veterans didn't come back to the United States. And of course, we all know Albert Neil Spadafora did not come back. Did not come back to grow up and live in Edgeworth, get married, have a family, start working, and make this community better. But his family, and there were 11, I believe, in the family, certainly did. And the Spadaforas have been behind a lot of community events, and I know for a fact do a lot of work for veterans behind the scenes, and they never sought publicity. And apparently Albert's mother did not want any publicity or limelight on her son. Maybe it was a way that she could forget a little, I don't know. But today Malden reveals itself as a proud city that honors and remembers its veterans. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here today, because your presence here is a tribute of honor to our veterans and also our active duty servicemen and women. Whether you take a veteran to a doctor's appointment or call to check in with them, take them to lunch, cut their grass once in a while, you honor their service and sacrifice. Those of us now in the home front, whether you hold a young veteran's hand on that first date, before or after they come back from war, or hold an older veteran's hand for the last time on their deathbed, you honor them. Well, today I want to introduce to you those that don't know her, Mary Latanzio, right here in the front row in the purple top, this young lady. And in 1943, Albert Neil Spadafora was smart enough to ask her to marry him. They were engaged, and then he went to England, and he served with the 8th Air Force in England. Also, we have with us today Albert Neil Spadafora, not Junior, but the nephew, and you all know him from Anthony's. Where are you hiding? There he is. A Vietnam veteran, a medic, served in the Army, just carrying on the name of Spadafora honorably. Staff Sergeant Albert Neil Spadafora, a son of Malden, died fighting for his country against the Germans in Europe during World War II. He was born here in Malden on January 3rd, 1922, and enlisted in the United States Army on October 2nd, 1942. During World War II, Albert was assigned to the 715th Bomber Squadron with the 448th Bomber Group with the 8th Air Force. The 448th flew B-24 Liberators as part of the 8th Air Force's strategic bombing campaign. From December 1943 until April 1945, Albert's unit bombed German factories as a strategic bombardment organization. They bombed aircraft factories, ball bearing plants, German airfields, U-boat facilities, chemical plants, synthetic oil refineries, aircraft engine plants, and the V1, V2 buzz bomb assembly plants. And you all know what those are about. Without the 8th Air Force's bombing over Germany, who knows how many years that war would have continued. On March 8, 1944, Albert was assigned to another crew. It wasn't his regular crew. He was asked to fill in on a plane, a B-24, going on a bombing mission to Erkner, Germany. That plane was heavily damaged by enemy aircraft and heavy anti-aircraft fire and flak, which punctured the fuel tanks and forced the pilot to ditch the plane in the English Channel. They were only 25 miles off the English coast when they had a ditch. They were hoping to do a water landing, as they were trained to do, in case they couldn't make it back. They had lost so much fuel they were not going to make it back to England. And a British rescue ship was in the ocean waiting to meet them. When the plane landed on the ocean, it broke in half when it hit the water. In the back of the plane, where Albert was a ball turret gunner, a machine gun in the back of the plane to protect the aircraft from German fighters. The plane broke in two, and Albert's portion sank immediately. It was a crew of about 10 people, and only 2 survived. They never recovered Albert's body. Staff Sergeant Albert Spadafora is recalled with love and respect by his fellow airmen in a book called Looking Back, A Tail Gunner's View of World War II, which was written to honor Staff Sergeant Dale Van Blair's crew, which Albert was a part of, and they were best friends in the military. You know, and that book was especially dedicated to Albert Shorty Spadafora. Everybody has a nickname in the military. But Dale said that Albert was more than just a friend or a crewman, he was like a brother. In between bombing missions, Dale and Albert went to a jewelry store in Norwich, England, so that Albert could buy his fiancée, Mary, a bracelet. After putting down a down payment on that bracelet, he left it there to be engaged and went back to work. On the evening of March 7th, 1944, when Albert got word he was to fill in as a crewman on another plane, he went to Dale and said, "Look, here's the receipt. You got to promise me that if anything happens to me, Mary will get the bracelet." Well, Dale and Albert had promised each other that if anything happened to either one of them, the other would notify their family. After learning that Albert's plane had crashed, Dale kept his promise, mailed Mary the bracelet, keeping in touch with her after the war. Mary went on to marry Bill de Avila in the 1950s, and who had been a close friend of Albert. And did he live here in Edgeworth? I believe. The next corner over. So, and a gunner also. It's like everybody was in World War II. Everybody's family, uncles, grandfathers. It's absolutely incredible. I'm in awe of our World War II veterans. They are the greatest generation. Well, today, Albert's name is listed on a memorial wall with the tablets of the missing at the American Cemetery in Cambridge, England. Albert N. Spadafora is one of Malden's fallen heroes. Today we dedicate this memorial square to Albert Spadafora, but earlier today we unveiled a POW MIA chair at McDonald Stadium, and I was thinking of Albert the whole time. There were other men that were prisoners of war and died, and others that were missing in action, and we don't know the cause of their death. Their remains were never recovered either. So that POW chair is in honor of everyone, including Albert. But this square, Albert N. Spadafora Memorial Square, is dedicated to Albert Spadafora, and in honor of him and all the good work that the Spadafora family has done. I'm sure that Mary Latanzio's letters to Albert during World War II kept his spirits high, and that their love made Albert fight bravely, to defeat the German enemy so he could come home, live a long and productive life. Though he never had that chance to come back, his brothers and sisters certainly picked up the ball and helped build his community. I know that his nephew Albert has spent his whole life honoring and helping veterans, just like many of the other Spadaforas. Today, we know that there are over 91,000 American service members who are prisoners of war, or like Albert, went missing in action, presumed killed in action, and never made it home. So at this time, I'd like to dedicate Staff Sergeant Albert Spadafora Square. So just bear with me a second, we've got to get up there on that ladder. Ladies and gentlemen, in honor of Albert Spadafora. Ladies and gentlemen, I just have one more thing to say. As you drive by on the street, you'll see in larger letters, it'll say Staff Sergeant Albert Neil Spadafora Memorial Square. You'll also see the gold star, which we have here today. It signifies those that were killed in action. During World War II and even today, you'll see a blue star in the windows of those families that have 1, 2, 3, or 4 children in service to our country. The Kinnan family, for instance, had 7 sons in the military. 1 was killed. On this side of the sidewalk street, because I wanted people to have larger letters when they drive by, they could read it. But on this side it says, in memory of Staff Sergeant Albert N. Spadafora, World war II, U.S. Army Air Forces. So in honor of Albert and all our veterans that never made it home, thank you for coming.